Alrighty guys, welcome back to another one. In tonight's breakdown video, we're doing a breakdown on Federal Premium Prairie Storm Flat Stopper lead. That's what the FS means. Flat Stopper, 16 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 1 1/8 ounces of number 4 shot, 1425 FPS. That is right up there with some Magnum 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge shells on the lighter side. Now, I wish that they still put these out in the 1 1/4 version, not the 1 1/8. We could deal with a little bit less speed, 1375, 1360, for a little bit more shot, especially with those 4s. If you don't know, 4s are quite big birdshot pellets, commonly used for turkey shells. Well, because they're quite a big pellet, you don't get quite as many of them in the shell for the same given payload. Like 1 1/8 ounces of number 6 shot would be a lot more pellets than 1 1/8 ounces of number 4. That's just how it is. So I'd like to see the 1 1/4 version back with maybe a little bit less speed. Less speed with lead, you get better patterns anyway. But these do have a flight control wad. The box design is really cool. Someone told me in the comments here that these little shockwave patterns are the shockwave from a bullet moving down, downrange. That's what Federal's done here. That makes sense to me. Notably, these are assembled in the USA rather than made in the USA. But there is a pheasant on the back of it going through a field. More pheasants right here, center of the box. Looks really cool. This side of it is... Actually, this is a pattern. I believe this is 12 gauge. Yeah, 12 gauge, 1 1/4 ounce through an IC choke at 40 yards. If you guys don't know, the flight control wads, they are vastly different from a regular target style wad, or really any other wad for that matter. You don't need a really tight choke to get good patterns at long range. Right here is an IC from a 12 gauge, 1 1/4 ounces, Prairie Storm line, and that is the pattern if this thing would focus. That's pretty dang good for wing shooting. The other side of the box is just warnings. Who wants to read any of that? The back of the box is the interesting stuff. It looks like this has 30% flat stopper lead, which is what people commonly refer to as Saturn shot. It's round with the ring around it. You guys will see that in just a moment. It's kind of hard to see on the box, but it is, think of the planet Saturn. That's what the shot looks like. Looks like it may be zinc coated or nickel plated. And the regular lead shot, which is 70% of our payload, is just copper plated. Rear opening flight control flex wad, sealed crimp, and some info about the Prairie Storm line right there. If you guys want to read any of it, just pause it. Specially formulated propellant, reliable primer. Yeah. And of course, the bottom of the box is just more warnings. But enough about the box. Let's have a look at the shell itself. It is purple. Federal 16 gauge hulls are purple, if you didn't know. And they look like royalty, purple and gold. But the shell itself says Prairie Storm FS lead 4 1 1/8 ounces, 1425 FPS 2 3/4 inch, which is 70 millimeter. There is a 16 millimeter brass head on it with a ring around the brass. Maybe it's hard to see on camera right there, center screen, which kind of reminds me of older shells. They had some, well, some of them had pretty ornate designs on the brass. With modern shells, you pretty much just see nothing. But at least that has a little bit of a line. Looks pretty cool, kind of like a crimped cartridge for a rifle or pistol. I don't know. But 209A primer. And the head stamp says 16 gauge Federal, and that's all it is. The crimp on all of these, the entire box, is rather poor. They all look like this or worse. This is about the best looking one I could find in the box, and I am sad to say that. Federal is my favorite brand of ammo, but sometimes their crimps are just bad. The top edge is a little wavy. You can see the right side is protruding up a little bit more than the left. But the reason that is because this shell is so full. Those 16 gauge flight control wads are rather tall. Where's the shell? Right here it is. Here is a regular fold crimped 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge. and you'll notice the 16 gauge is quite a bit taller. Let me move that. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. There you go. The 16 gauge is quite a bit taller, and that is because the crimp is very, very shallow. This is a very full shell. The flight control wads take up a lot of room, and this is 1 1/8 ounces, which is the standard magnum load for 16 gauge, although we used to be able to get 1 1/4 ounces. I don't know, the hull is just full. That explains the ugly crimp. But without further ado, let's crack this open and see how they put it together. So this time, we're going to go in the reverse order that we usually do. We're going to start with the hull, and it's nothing special. It's just a regular Federal, 16 gauge hull here. Purple, once again the color of royalty, purple and gold. Fiber base wad, as is always with Federal 10 and 16 gauge hulls. I believe they're the only two left that still always have a fiber base wad, 10 and 16 gauge, but straight wall, nothing really to note here. It's just a regular Federal hull, but in 16 gauge. Now, the primer is a 209A. It has the pink sealant in there. I have seen yellow, I have seen blue. I'm not sure if those are different primers. I have no idea, to be honest, but this is a 209A as noted by the pink sealant. Again, nothing really to talk about there. The powder is a ball powder that looks similar to that stuff back there. There you go. But it may or may not be that. There's no way to really tell. I wouldn't think it would be. Federal has, they're under the same parent company as Alliant Powder, not Hodgdon, which is Vista Outdoors. Remington is also under that brand. And some other stuff, but there's the powder. Let's see how much it weighs. The scale says 37.8. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 38. As you guys seen, there are a few flakes left in there, and there was a few flakes stuck in the bottom of the wad. Those fell out. But I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 38, or right at 38, which is quite a hefty charge for a 16 gauge. It would make sense for it to be that stuff right there with that high of a charge, but I doubt it is. Main star of the show here, this is a 16 gauge flight control flex wad, which is a redesigned version of the original flight control, meant to go through any choke, ported or flush mount, non-ported, any choke. But the powder reservoir, I call it the powder cup, gas seal, is very, very deep. All of that powder sits up inside here, and if you look at the middle of my index finger right there, you'll see a slit. There are 8 of them. Actually, I believe this has 6 all around the perimeter of the gas seal. Those open up whenever you fire the shells, and that is what strips the wad away. I believe the idea behind the flight control wads are it stays with the payload just a little bit longer. It releases the shot a little bit slower for a much, much better pattern. It's rear opening rather than opening from the top with petals. There are also slits in the side of the wad, which I have heard referred to as air brakes. Not sure if that's the correct terminology, but that's what I'll call it anyway. So, air brakes. I believe there are 3 of those. They're right here. They look like cuts. And the damage up here is from the needle nose pliers, wherever they may be, I used to pull out the wad. And just for the record, this was insanely tight inside the hull. Like, it was almost impossible to pull out. That's why the that's why the damage to the wad is there. Anyway, this is my first time ever seeing a 16 gauge flight control wad, and I have to say, it's pretty impressive. The biggest size buckshot I was able to stack in here is 30 cal by 2s. 31 cal is too big, 32 cal obviously too big. So 30 cal and smaller is the option to go with buckshot, unless you want to pull a Remington and just loosely drop pellets in there. Then you can get 8 pellets of even double-aught 33 cal in here. But they will not be stacked by 2s, which is optimal for best patterns. I don't know, just thinking outside the box here for maybe a future, if we ever get these on the market, buckshot assembly with flight control wads. I don't know. Maybe I'll break down a few of these. I do have 2 boxes of these. So maybe we'll break down some and do some 16 gauge flight control buckshot with these. Don't know, guys. But there it is, our 16 gauge flight control wad. Now as for the shot, it is both number 4s. Maybe you can see them in there. Some of them are the FS LED flight stopper, which again, people commonly refer to that as Saturn shot. You can see the rings on it, notably the one center screen, the bottom row, you can see the ring on it. Let's see how much this weighs, and then I'll get a better view of the pellets themselves. But this is a buffered shell, as you can see down there. Well, I gotta say, I didn't expect that. This is a full 1 1/8 ounce payload of just the lead, and the buffer is bringing it up to 1.18 even. 1 1/8 ounces is 1.125. We have 1.18. So that's always nice to see, a full advertised payload in a shell. But now let's take a better look at the pellets themselves. We've seen copper plated shot before. Again, this is 4s. I mainly want to focus on the FS shot, the flight stopper. So this iPhone is having problems picking it up, so it's the best I can do, guys. The pellet on the farthest right is a standard copper plated number 4 lead. The other 3 are the FS pellets, again flight stopper, and again people commonly refer to that as Saturn shot, as noted by the, well, not noted, but the ring around the center of the pellet kind of looks like the planet Saturn, or if you've ever played Ocarina of Time, Zelda, it looks like a Deku nut. Now I don't know exactly how these affect patterns, but I'm assuming that since these are not round, not spheres, they fly a little bit more erratic, which creates a better wing shooting pattern, i.e. pheasants, things like that, maybe some sandhill crane. But it stops them from being full-on turkey shells, turkey loads. This flight control wad produces really, really tight patterns. I imagine they put the FS lead in there, that way it's not a straight turkey load. This is a much clearer shot right here. Sorry for the shaky cam though, but there you go. Now I'm not sure if Federal's claiming that these improve patterns over standard lead, but I personally would not think so. I just don't see how a misshapen pellet like that can fly better than a perfect sphere, if that makes sense. But I could be wrong, who knows. And here it is put back together. The crimp is not pretty. I did not think it was going to be anyway, but that's okay. The rest of them in the box look, well, pretty much identical. Kind of lopsided, not very deep set, but it is what it is. This was the one I just opened up, but there is a breakdown on Federal Prairie Storm FS LED 16 gauge, 1 1/8 ounce 4-shot, 1425 FPS. I'm willing to bet that these do pattern very, very well. We will do a range video on these, so you guys that are interested, just stay tuned for that. I'm sure it'll be a good one. We have a few different guns and chokes we can test them out of. I'm pretty excited for it, but anyway, that's going to end this one here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.